So for our first question, we have a student in here who says that they are about a 70% free throw shooter. They get 2 free throws at the end of the game, 2 shots. What's the probability they'll make 2 out of 2? Now this uses this little formula. It's called the something formula. Does anybody remember? I said it once. Say it if you know it. Binomial. Good. There's a number here. There's a number here. There's a number here, and this is to a power. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers you got to put in the right spots. But it's not that bad. This part is, though, can be figured out with a calculator, or in this case, probably in your head. And we're going to go use our calculators to figure out some combinations, permutations in a minute. All right. Caldy, can you tell me what C what?
2C2.
2C2, because there's 2 shots, and we are considering the case that he makes 2. This is make, and this is miss. Jackson, can you tell me what the probability of make is?
0.7.
And the miss.
And 0.3 miss.
And then how many makes do I want to put down for this exponent here?
2.
And then how many misses? 0. That means this whole thing can be skipped because anything to the 0 power is just 1. And this whole thing can be skipped if you know what 2C2 is. It's just 1. Now, if you have to, you'd have a calculator. You could check it, but it's going to be 1. And so that's just 0.7 times 0.7. And I know some of you are thinking, I could have just done that in the first place. Only on the ones where they make all the shots or make none of the shots. Then they're like this. But if you make like 2 and miss 1, if it's that kind, you'll need this formula. I could do this in my head then, 0.49. Raise your hand if you had 0.49. All right. Would you agree that is about a 50% chance that they would make them both? All right. Would you now figure out the probability that they will make 1? Exactly 1. Not at least 1. They only make 1 out of 2. And put it right underneath the other one. Like, make your little formula be right underneath it. You can always grab it with the lasso and drag it over there. Put it right underneath. There's method to my madness. Okay. If there's a 42% chance, raise your hand if you got 42, and there's a 49% chance that you're going to make 2 out of 2, what's the only other thing that's left? You're either going to make 2 out of 2 or you're going to make 1 out of 2, so then what's the other thing? 0 out of 2. But we can do that with just using logic. I don't have to go do the whole thing. I can look at this, and that adds up to 91%. Do you get, this must be 0.09? Because I know these add up to 100%. Know what I mean? I can figure that one out without even doing it. If you wanted to, it's not that hard. You do 2, choose 0, 0.7 to the 0, 0.3 to the second. And that's really just 1, and that's really just 1, so it's really just 0.3 to the second, and that's 0.09. It makes sense. All right. That's only one kind of question that we could ask you. Here's another. Would you agree that there are many 4-digit numbers in the world? If we include 0000 as a number and 073 as a number, and, well, I guess it's a 4-digit number, it'd be like 0073. Things that have zeros in front are counted as numbers, just so you know. And 0000 can also be a number. Then how many numbers could I make? But wait, it's not just quite that easy. Otherwise, it would just spend 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. But how many numbers can I make if the number has to be bigger than 7,000? No, 7,000 or bigger. How many ways can a 4-digit number be 7,000 or bigger? Talk about the strategy you used with the kid next to you. All right. It's all about choices. How many choices do I have for that spot? Well, normally there's 10 choices. But in this case, I could have a 7 or an 8 or a 9. 3 choices. For the other spots, since I don't care as long as it starts with a 7 or 8 or a 9, these can be anything. So 10, 10, 10. Make sense to you? All right. Now, in Minnesota, we have 3 numbers followed by 3 letters on the license plates. It can be 3 numbers first, 3 letters first. There's actually some more combinations that are possible because they allow you on what are called a personalized plate. You have 7 spots. So I, for instance, got one that was just and I don't feel like I want to put my license plate on the internet, so I'm not going to say what it is. But let's imagine it was, I love
42.
42. There you go. Good. 42 is a classic number from a book. So there we go. That'd be a great license plate. That one's probably taken because it's a number from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and somebody's probably got that one. All right. Now, what if, you can put numbers or letters in any of the spots? Okay. There are certain license plates they won't let you have because they're just too dirty. So a lot of people play the game of, can I make something that they won't understand is a dirty word, but make it out of numbers and letters and that. And so they eventually, when the state catches on to those, they're like, oh, I see what they're doing. And then they make that license plate illegal too. So there's a lot of illegal combos. But if there wasn't, and if you can have letters or numbers in every spot, then tell me how to figure out, and actually do it with your calculator, figure out how many possible license plates we could have that are personalized plates like this. Remember, you can have numbers or letters in every spot. I'm going to pause for a second. You try that one. All right, so on this one, I didn't say that they couldn't repeat, so then they can repeat, and that means you really have, well, there's 26 letters. 26 letters, what am I doing wrong? Yeah, so there's actually how many? 36 choices for each spot. And I'm smart enough to know that that's going to be 36 to the power of 7. So I don't want to have to write it 7 times. Does that make sense to you? Is that a big number? It's massive. Does it actually go into the kind where they're scientific notation?
Yeah.
All right. Emilio, would you read it to me? What exactly did your calculator say?
7.8364161 times 10 to the power of 10.
So this actually probably says EE,
Yeah.
or E, and then what's after that?
10.
Just 10. And you are correct. That means times 10, or to the power of 10, which really just means move this decimal over 10 spots. And it's a really, really big number. Okay, good. Was that a permutation?
No.
Could I have just simply done something P something to get that answer?
I mean, order does matter.
All right. The order does matter because having a number in front of a different letter or reversing it is different things. So order matters, but I don't think you want to do all your permutation problems like, oh, I'm going to do 36p7. Okay? You want to be able to use blanks sometimes, permutations sometimes. And don't just think I'm going to do everything with the permutation on the calculator. These blanks are really handy. In fact, if I was going to pick, I'd do everything with blanks. And then sometimes it'll turn out that you could have used a permutation. But use blanks if you're like, I'm not sure what to do. Use blanks. Let me give you another one that's in blanks. Okay. This time, it's only a 3-digit license plate because it's a much smaller place. They don't need so many license plates. It's just the state of South Dakota. South Dakota doesn't have that many cars in it because they don't have that many people in it. It's actually one of the smallest states for population in the nation. So let's say that in South Dakota, they have figured out that O, the letter O, is pretty indistinguishable from a 0, right? So they say, we're not going to allow S for South Dakota, or D, or O. Those are all out. And there's no repeats. So you could not have a license plate of ZZZ, for example, because there's no repeats. If those 3 letters are out and there's no repeats, this would be pretty much impossible to do with a permutation. You go on and use the blanks. Yes?
We are using numbers with this too, or no?
Oh, good question. Yes, I'm still using the same rules where you can use letters or numbers on the license plate. That's a fair question. I did not clarify. We're still under the same rules that each of these spots could be a letter or a number, except no S's, no D's, no zeros, and no repeats. Sorry. No O's because they look like zeros. Zeros are allowed, just not O's. All right, get your answer, compare it with the kid next to you, see if you get the same thing. I heard it's 32, 736. Anybody verify that? Okay, good. And John Paul, what were the blanks? What were my choices?
33.
Why not 36?
Because you can't use those 3 letters.
All right, and then?
32.
Yup.
Can't repeat,
Oh,
and then...
I'm a little dyslexic for a second there. Sorry about that. 32, and then 31. Okay, good. Now, what if I said the first letter has to be, or the first place has to be a T? The first thing on the license plate has to be a T, period. The governor says, I really like the letter T. I'm a little crazy, and so I'm making this law. Has to be a T. Well, then what do you put there? T? Can't put a T there. You put a 1 because you have one choice for that. Then it would really just be 32 times 31. Okay. All right, good enough on that. Next kind. Let's imagine that it is a... I rigged up my drone so that I could fly my fishing lure way out in the lake and then let it go and bloop and drop it in there. It would allow me to have a cast that was way longer than I could actually do with my fishing rod. I thought it was kind of cool. So I rigged up the drone to fly out and then drop my lure out in the lake. And I really especially wanted to drop a bobber out there because when it's that far away, the only way I'd be able to see if I caught a fish is if the bobber went down and I'd be like, oh, I've got one. You know what I mean? So I dropped the bobber way out there. All right. So imagine that the lake here is a big rectangular area that I could reach from my dock. In fact, let's make it more realistic. What I could realistically reach from the end of my dock was more like a circle. I could fly it in any direction, so around me. So I'm standing here at the end of the dock, and I could fly it out. And what would be my limit? It would be how much line I have on my reel. So I could just keep flying it out there and eventually drop it. Let's say I really wanted to hit this little spot where I know there's good fishing out there, because Did you know that sometimes people will drop Christmas trees in a pile? They'll put a pile of Christmas trees out on the ice. And then when the ice melts, the Christmas trees drop. And then that pile of Christmas trees creates good cover for the fish underneath it. So fish will hang out by those trees. True story. Okay.
Is that legal?
Yep, it is. And so it's in fact encouraged on some lakes because some lakes are kind of boring on the bottom. The fish don't have anywhere to like hang out and hide from the big fish. And so you end up with only a few fish in the lake because the big fish eat all of them. All right, so this probability question boils down to two circles. What's the probability that I get it in this circle? If this, I have, let's say, 50 feet of line, so my radius that I can go out is 50. And this little thing has a radius of 4. What's the probability I'm going to hit that spot? Remember, the probability is always what you want over what's possible. If you forgot, somebody tell me, what's that formula for area of a circle again? Pi r squared. I'm going to pause while you figure this one out. All right. What you want is this little red circle, which is pi times 4 squared, which is 16 times pi. On the bottom, we have pi times 50 squared. The pi's can cancel. I don't know if you even thought about that. It would make it a lot easier to do. And then this is really 16 out of, I think it's 2,500. Can anybody verify that? Thank you. And then that is really small probability. All right. But in the real world, do you get my probability of hitting that spot is much better because I'm going to be aiming the drone? And so my probability is much higher than that. This would be if it was just the drone flies to a random spot and drops the lure. My probability would be much, much better. It still wouldn't be 100% because, you know, you got to use some skill and aiming and all that. But all right. This, what was that? It's probably rounds to 0.
0.0064.
Oh, and we're going to go to 3 decimal places. So there you go. That's what you would have put. Any questions about that? Okay, here's another kind of question. Do you remember the reach into Mr. Server's wallet problem? Well, I got a few more bills to make it more interesting. Now, would you agree if you get to take a bill and it's actually real money, it's not a trick, you should be concerned about a scam, but this one's not a scam, it's actually real American dollars, would you pay at least $1 to play? Yes, because your expected value is you'll at least get your buck back. So it must be over $1 is your expected value, right? And then would you pay $1,000 to play?
No.
No, because there isn't even $1,000 bill in circulation. I think banks have them, but like nobody has one that I know of anyway. So if I tell you the numbers though, you can figure out the expected value of playing this game. At first I'm going to say it's free to play. Then figure out your expected value. Then I'm going to tell you a price. And then you have to decide, do I want to play now? So imagine there's no cost. And I have one $10 bill, 2 20s, I'm going to write that like this, and a $50 bill. Now you can clearly tell that my expected value is, well, if I get 10 back, it has to be bigger than 10. I mean, because the worst that could happen is I get 10. And if you paid more than 50, you're just an idiot. Most you can get back is 50, right? So it's somewhere between 10 and 50 is the expected value. What is that general formula? Something times something, then something. Do you remember? Probability times amount. Then what do you do?
Plus probability times amount.
And then what do you do?
Do it again and then dot, dot, dot.
And then what do you do? That's pretty much it. You keep adding them up. It's P times A, then add. And you have to do that for everything that's possible. Do you agree that there are 3 things possible? You could get a 10, you could get a 50, and you could get a 20. Those are the 3 things that are possible. I know some of you are like, but there's 2 20s. Yeah, but we'll factor that into the probability of it. There's only 3 outcomes. You get a 10, you get a 20, or you get a 50. Do that, get the answer, and please compare it with the person that I have paired you with for today. Same thing?
Because that's what you want over what you get. So there are 4 options. So then for the 10, it would be much less. This would be it. 50 would be another one. And the 20 would be 45.
Okay, here's the 3 things you could get. You could get a 10, you could get a 50, or you could get a 20. You might have done it in a different order, but there's your 3 things. Hakan, what did you get?
25.
All right. So that is the expected value if the game was free. You'd expect on average, remember this is an average, because is there a $25 bill in my wallet? No. So you got to see it's an average. You're not going to actually get 25. On average, you would get 25. All right, now the real world kicks in, and I'm going to say you have to pay $30 to play the game. So what do you say?
No.
Nope, not going to play then. But what do people say in casinos all the time?
26.
My point is the casinos have it rigged, and you all know it.
Oh, yeah.
And yet people say, yeah, I'd like to bet. It's rigged against them. It's just not rigged against them by that much. So I'd agree in the casino, it might cost $26 to play the game. And tons of people will line up to play that game, even though their expected value is -1. People will play it all day long, and the casino will make $1 on average every single time people bet. On average. And people bet about 50 times while they're there, and that means they make about $50. All right, so that's expected value. P times A, then add them all up. All right, next kind. CC over C, everybody write that. For this one, I'm going to do, in this class, it is mostly freshmen and sophomores, okay? So make this the freshman and this the soph. To me, it looks like, right this minute, that we have about 20 freshmen and about 10 sophomores. If I grab a random 2 kids, what's the probability it'll be one of each? Hakan, can you tell me what goes on the bottom?
I don't think I have it.
I'll give you a hint. The bottom is where you get your totals. Like how many totals and how many total did we pick?
30 and 2?
Yeah,
Oh,
pick 2 kids. Then talk about the freshmen in terms of like how many there were and how many we picked.
20 freshmen and we picked 1.
Yep, keep going.
And 10 sophomores and we picked 1.
And now here's how you can tell if you did it right. Does that plus that make that? Yep. Does that plus that make that? Yep. All right. Now, actually getting this answer isn't super hard because I did choose 1, so I know that that's 20. And choose 1, and that's 10. Then divide it by, 30 choose 2. I have no clue. But could I do it by hand? Oh, I could. 30 factorial over 30 minus 2 is 28 factorial with an extra 2 factorial on the bottom. Do you remember how to do that? That could be on your test, hint, hint. So what you might be like, well, I'm just going to use a calculator for that. Yeah, what if I change one of the letters to P? I'll give you an example. PCM would be P factorial over, why don't you finish that one and see if you really get it. What if I use variables in my thing? What if it's like this? PCM. Sam, did I start right with P factorial?
Yes.
Yep. What would be down here?
P minus M.
What's the name for that thing we're doing?
I'm not sure.
Factorial. With an extra M factorial. Who figured that one out? Raise your hand if you did. Okay, nice job. So, I'd like to actually finish this question. I don't want to do this in my head. So somebody, what did you get for that answer about the freshmen and sophomores? Emilio.
I got 0.459.
Would it round to 0.46 if I went to 2 decimal places? Who would have got an answer that would have rounded to 0.46? Okay, good. All right. So we have now covered everything that you'd have to know to do all right on this test. It is not an easy test, though. All right. Let's end with one last C with parentheses called the binomial. One last binomial question. Let's say that you're a soccer player and you get 3 free kicks. In the past, you've made 80%. What's the probability you're going to make at least 1? Do you mean I have to figure out the probability of 1 or 2 or 3? Yeah, but there's a faster way. Don't see if people can figure out the probability of making at least 1. Hint, that means anything will work as long as you don't make 0. All right, could I do 3 choose 1 with 0.8 and 0.2 and a 1 and 1, no, 1 and 2? Yeah, I could do it that way, but it would take forever. I got to do 3C1, 3C2, and 3C3. So, instead, John Paul, can you explain what you would do?
Yeah, so what I would do is I would do 3C0, and then...
What would this be to the what?
To the 0.
And then to the...
3.
And that is a very small probability. Let's say it's like 1%. Then what? You just figured out the probability you won't make any. What do you do with it?
And then you subtract that from 1.
So you go 1 minus that. And that means there would be a 99% chance. Okay? Now, I'm not sure if it's exactly 1. What was it when you did that?
0.008.
008. Would you agree if we round to 3 decimal places, it would be 0.001? I think so.
It's 0 and 0.
0.08.
Yeah, 0.
Oh, I heard too many zeros. Sorry. John, can you read it again? Just read the decimal. Please don't say anything before the decimal. Point
0.008.
008. Aha. Okay. Now, I take 1 minus that. And what did you get for your final answer?
0.992.
Sounds right to me. Does that make sense? All right. So, honestly, one of your hardest, I'm not going to say your hardest test, one of your hardest tests. Because probability can be confusing even for the math teachers. So am I trying to get you to be depressed? No, I'm trying to get you to study tonight. There's a really good practice test. There's a key for it. If you take the time and study for it and put in like an extra hour tonight, then the rest of your week's easy because you got an A on the test and then your cumulative is easy peasy. If you go into this test super weak, then you have all this pressure on the cumulative on Friday. Your life. Do what you want to do. For you.